With one being built in Aiken County, two now approved for Columbia County, and another planned for Richmond County, it's very obvious, very apparent that data centers certainly will be part of the CSRA's future. The big question many folks are asking, certainly have asked us here at Fox 54, how much of our future will the data centers be connected? We're joined now by Michael Nowatkowski, the director of Augusta University's Cyber Institute. Michael, thanks so much for being with us, and I appreciate your insight. So first off, in your opinion, where are we headed with the data centers? It seems like this, once it has gotten rolling, things have really accelerated. Is this the tip of a very large iceberg?
Well, data centers are going to become more and more important to all of the artificial intelligence that everybody wants access to. So data centers have to go somewhere. So maybe Columbia County and the CSRA are good fits. We have abundant power and we have access to more power. So this could be a good place, a good fit for these data centers, and they could bring jobs and other improvements to our community.
Wanted to get your opinion on some of the concerns that we've been hearing from homeowners, especially those who live near the data centers. As you know, there have been multiple public hearings on the issues, and one estimate projected energy needs for data centers could double, even triple by 2030. So as you imagine, as the need for more power becomes apparent with larger data centers being built and more being built, how do you think this is going to affect the overall electrical infrastructure moving forward?
Well, there will need to be expansion and improvements to the current electric grid in this area in order to support these large data centers. They do use a lot of power. Some estimates are as much as a small city, depending on the size of the data center. So to be able to support that, there will need to be improvements in the electric grid, which could provide benefits for the surrounding communities.
Also wanted to ask you about the amount of water needed for the data center, especially for the cooling of the server towers. I read one group described it, this is quite the visual if you think about it, a large straw sucking up the water table. I know you're not an environmental scientist, you're more on the cyber end, but have you heard as far as when it comes to the water, how sustainable is this moving forward?
So there are challenges with the amount of water that's needed for the cooling of these systems, depending on where the data center draws its water from. If it's from the aquifer in the area, that could potentially be a problem because it would be drawing quite a bit of water out. If they're getting their water from other sources, it might not be as bad. There's also likely some techniques that they could use to recycle the water for the cooling. So there may be some research in that area involving ways to reduce the amount of water used.
Yeah, you were mentioning recycling water, and some of the critics have said the biggest problem for them is most of this water is evaporating, and so they're worried about refilling the water in the water table and whatnot. Have you heard those criticisms as well?
I have, and it depends on the technology that they use for the cooling. One of the ways to do that is through an evaporation technique, which would lose quite a bit of the water, but there may be ways to recapture some of that water as well and put some of it back into the system to reuse.
One other concern I wanted to touch on, the issue of noise and air pollution from the data centers' use of the backup generators. And I know it's supposed to be just for backup use, but from my understanding, they're also able to use the generators when it hits a certain demand, and they can use it for, I believe, up to 50 hours nonstop. Have you heard about those concerns, and also the concerns about noise pollution from the cooling fans and the generators linked to health problems? And I understand that we're learning a lot of information as we go because, as I said, this is really accelerating. So I know you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and that's sort of the purpose of this interview as we try to learn more about the possible effects of data centers, because it seems like we're only going to add more as we move into the future.
Yeah, so the issues surrounding noise pollution and even material pollution is something to be concerned about. You would hope that the zoning would be such that these data centers would be built far enough away from residential areas so that the noise would degrade with distance and not be as big of a problem. But I can understand some of the areas they're talking about putting these data centers in are rural areas that don't have much any noise at all right now. So to introduce any noise could be a distraction or something that would cause the surrounding areas to be concerned about that.
Do you think that the general public should, at this point, come to the realization that data centers are here to stay? Because you think about the demand for AI, it's only going to increase. Most local governments, more than likely, are not going to vote against them, since we're talking projected tax revenue, like, for instance, Columbia County, $118 million, the larger centers even more than that. Should they just come to the realization that they're here to stay, and the goal now is just to manage it in the best way possible with the environmental concerns?
I understand the concern that people have of there's trade-off between the benefit of having the data center here to bring in jobs, to increase the tax base, to build up the community around, but also the data centers, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but they likely have to go somewhere. So I think it's a challenge to find a community that would necessarily welcome the data center in because of the distractions and some of the negative parts of the data center. But I think maybe the benefits need to be weighed with that of improvements in the area, jobs for people moving forward. So, but you are right, the data centers are here to stay as we move more and more toward using AI every day in our lives. Probably many of your viewers use AI every day, whether they realize it or not. So the data centers power all of that AI, and again, they have to go somewhere.
Right now, what we're hearing from people at these public hearings, it seems, and I don't think it seems, it's a fact that there's a lack of trust right now with some homeowners, not everyone, obviously, especially those who live near the data centers, because they're the most affected. They feel like, Dr. Nowatkowski, that they're not getting all the information, possibly even being misled, because there is so much at stake for the companies that are owning and running the data centers, and of course the governments that are going to be getting this tax revenue in excess of $100 million. What do you think companies can do and local governments can do to help ease the concerns of those who might be skeptical of what's going to happen and how the data centers might affect their lives?
Well, it is challenging because I'm sure the companies want to keep some of their negotiations, some of their offers private and not disclose those to the community while they're in this negotiation phase. But it would help the community understand better what's going on if they were more transparent and disclosed more of the planning that's in place and some of the mitigations that will be put in place to reduce the impact on the community.
Anything else you'd like to add to help those of our viewers, those folks watching online, better understand this issue? Because it seems like it's almost like trying to drink out of a water hose for many people, because so much information is being sent to them now that they understand that this whole data center thing is not a phase. This is going to be part of our lives.
Right, and it's hard to know right now if the benefits will outweigh the downfalls of the data center. I think as technology moves forward and advances, research is done on how to better cool these systems, to reduce the power intake. It may be over time that the benefits far outweigh any detractors that may be part of the data center.
Okay, Michael Nowatkowski, Director of Augusta University's Cyber Institute. Thanks so much for your insight, and we hope you have a great week.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You bet.